All right, so this lesson is to remind you how to use the calculator for some of the most important features. And so each of these questions, some of them we're just writing down what the steps are, and some of them we're actually using the calculator to answer the question. So for number 1, we are going to find some key characteristics of this quadratic function. And so we do know how to do this without a calculator, but I want to remind you how to do it in a calculator. And so anytime you have a quadratic equation, you can go to y equals, clear what's in there, and type in negative 2x squared minus 8x plus 10. If it's a leading negative, meaning there's nothing in front of it, you need to use the negative sign. If it's an operation between two terms, you need to use the minus sign. Okay, and so for the zeros, remember that's the exact same thing as x-intercept. You can press graphs, and you can see there's 2 zeros here, 2 x-intercepts. And so one of them looks like it's at negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, and the other one's at positive 1. When in doubt, press second graph and look for a 0 in the y column. So 1, 0 and negative 5, 0. You can write them as ordered pairs, just like that. Or sometimes when they're referring to them as zeros, they'll use roster notation with squiggly brackets and just list the value negative 5 and 1. Those are the zeros. Okay, for the vertex, we don't actually see it on our graph, and so we need to adjust the window to move it upward. So to do that, you're going to press the window button and look at your options. Since I want the window to go up, I need to change the y max. Right now it's at 10, and so I'm going to go down and change that to like 30 and see if that helps. Press graph again. And that did help. If it didn't, I would just go to 50, then go to 100 and just keep increasing. So here's the vertex right here. And so to calculate that, you have to press second trace. And since the quadratic is opening downward, we know that's a maximum. Okay, and so this vertex is a maximum. And so choose option 4. And then it's going to ask for a left bound, so use your left arrow to move to the left of the vertex. Press enter. Use the right arrow to move to the right. Press enter. And then when it says guess, make sure you're in between those 2 bounds. Press enter once more. Once it says the word maximum, that's going to be your coordinates. And your calculator will be off a little bit. Like here it says 1.99999. They're trying to say 2, negative 2. Don't lose your negatives. And so negative 2, 18 would be the coordinates for the vertex. That negative sign is really, really small, so don't lose it. Negative 2, 18. And plus it's obvious it's over here in the negatives. Okay, remember once you have the vertex, you also have the axis of symmetry because it's the x coordinate of the vertex with an x equals in front of it. Okay, and then for the range, since the quadratic is pointing down, we want to make sure we have y is less than or equal to. If it was pointing up, I would flip this to be greater than or equal to, and it's always going to match the y value of the vertex since that's the maximum. Okay, and so the negative 2, the x-coordinate, goes with the axis of symmetry. The 18 goes with the range. Domain is all real numbers all the time. And so we can say that using infinities, negative infinity to positive infinity, or we can use the fancy R, or we can use our words, all real numbers. Okay, and so on question 2, very, very similar. This time they're saying solutions, which is the exact same thing as x-intercepts, which is the same thing as zeros. We have 4 names: roots, zeros, x-intercepts, solutions. And so again, we're finding the exact same thing. And so you can move the 5 to the other side by subtracting it, or you can put this part of the equation into y1. You can put this part into y2 and find their intersections, which is what I like to do. Okay, and so go to y equals, clear that, type in the 4x squared plus 8x, and then for y2, that's where we type the right side of the equation. And this works for any equation. Press graph to see what it's looking like. See if you can see the solutions. Okay, the red and the blue intersect twice, so I see that there are 2 solutions. We have to find both. So you do second trace, and this time we're going to choose intersect. We want to choose the intersection points. So option 5. Okay, move this blinking arrow closest to the one you're interested in, and then press enter 3 times. Enter, enter, enter. Once it says the word intersection, you're done. And then when we're looking for solutions for this, we just want the x value. And so one solution would be 0.5 or 1/2. And I'll show you how to turn that into a fraction if you need to in a second. Okay, and then now I need to find the other solution. So second trace, intersect again. Make sure you are blinking closer to the other point. Press enter, enter, enter. Negative 2.5. Okay, and so that is negative 5/2. So second quit. Type in negative 2.5 into your calculator, and then press math, enter, enter, and it converts any decimal to a fraction. Okay, so we've already talked about how to adjust your window in the calculator. And so you press window. And so you're going to adjust either the X-min if you want to move left, X max if you want to adjust to the right. Okay, you're going to change the Y-min if you want the screen to go down. You're going to change the Y max if you want the screen to go up. And so your standard window is 10 by 10. So if I hit zoom 6, right now it's just 10 by 10. And you can go up by changing the Y max. You can go down by changing the Y min. And so that's how you adjust the window. Okay, we're going to have to do that on number 4. It says, what is the solution to the system? Anytime you have X and Y that you're solving for, see up here, we didn't have Y in our equation. So that's why I didn't write any Y values, only X values for the solutions here. Here we have Y's in our equation. So this time our solution is an ordered pair. Okay, so we're going to Y equals 3,000 plus 5x. And then for equation 2, 10x. There's an x there. Don't forget the x. Otherwise, you're just going to have a horizontal line. Okay, when I press graph, I'm not going to see the solutions because the y-intercept of this top line is 3,000. Okay, and so I'm not even seeing the first line because it's way up at 3,000. And so this is when I would press window, and I would change the y max to maybe 5,000. Give yourself some breathing room. Actually, that's 30,000. So I'm missing a 0. Okay, and so when I adjust my window, I'm gonna need maybe, let's do 35,000. Okay, and so it looks like a horizontal line because a slope of 5 compared to 30,000 is going to seem really, really flat. Okay, and then my other line, my red line, is way down here. Okay, you can barely even see it. So there's two things I need to change about this. One is I need to move the screen down by adjusting the Y-min. And I also need to move to the right since these are probably intersecting way to the right. And so I'm going to press window. First, let's move it down. So let's do negative maybe 1,000. And then for the X max, I literally just keep guessing. And so I'm going to change this to maybe 100,000. That's kind of dramatic. I can always come back and make it smaller. Okay, so here I see the red and the blue in the corner. So I don't need to go that far in the X, but I need to go up more in the Y. So change your X max. Let's get rid of a 0. Maybe a couple. Let's do 1,000 for X max. And let's change our Y max to maybe 50,000. Okay, so still can't see the intersection point. Add another 0 to this X max. Okay, need to move up. So let's change this to 60,000. Super close. Let's go up just a little more. 70,000. Okay, so finally we have it. So second trace, intersect, get as close as you can, press enter, enter, enter. The intersection is 6,000 for the X and 60,000 for the Y. Okay, and so that's probably the ugliest thing you'll have to do. Okay, the next thing we need to remember how to do is turning the diagnostics on your calculator. Okay, and so you press mode and scroll down to stat diagnostics, and the default is always going to be off. So you need to turn it on. Okay, and so mode, stat diagnostics on. So the next question says, when do you need to do this? For correlation, I'm not sure if that's how you spell it. I'm pretty sure it's not. There's one L. For correlation coefficient, this is the R value. Anytime you need information about the correlation coefficient or the R value, that's when you want to turn this on. Okay, so here's an example. The table shows the height and the lengths of several rectangles. What does the correlation coefficient? And so that tells me I need to turn stat diagnostics on. For the data, indicate about the strength of the linear association between the height and the length. So remember, the strength, R equals positive or negative 1, is strong. R equals 0 is weak. The closer you are to 0, the weaker you are. You can ignore the positive and negatives, except for when you're trying to answer here, negative, positive. Okay, and so to figure out this information, we have to put this table in our data by pressing stat, edit. You need to put in all these values, not just 2 of them. So the height is going to be L1. So 41, 70, 21, 34, 10, 92, 54, 24, 10, 35, 42, 66. Y's go here. Okay, now before I do anything, I double check and make sure I have the same amount of numbers in each column so I don't skip anything. And then I do a quick check and make sure I actually typed these in right. So 21, 25, 32, 12, 16, 45, 48, 23, 40. So 45. Okay, and so from there, you're going to press stat again, calc, and then when deciding between linreg, quadreg, xreg, they're talking about the strength of the linear. So we want linreg, not xreg. We will use xreg and quadreg, but for this problem, we want linreg. So we're choosing option 4. Okay, now you do not care about r squared, you only care about r. They're going to put r squared there as a distraction. Completely ignore the r squared. We don't use that here. Okay, so the r value is 0.155. And so what I do is I keep 2 decimals. So that would round up to 16. And then look at those 2 decimals as if they were a test score. A 16 on a test would be a very weak performance. 70 and above would be strong. Anything below 70 is weak. And so this is weak. I'm going to cross off B and D because those say strong. Also, there is no negative in front of this number, so it is weak and positive. Okay? And so now we're going to answer how to put a fraction in the calculator. We already talked about that. It's math, nope, that is not it. You put a fraction by doing alpha y equals 1. And it puts a little fraction bar so you can type in a numerator and a denominator. So alpha y equals 1. Okay, and then you reset the calculator by doing second plus 712. I have a poster for that. So second plus 712. Putting boxes around things that are buttons. Okay, when do you need to reset your calculator? Whenever you want, whenever it's acting weird, whenever you want to clear data. And so, weird, clear data, or just want a fresh start. Okay, what you do not want to do is press the reset button. That's a hard reset. That's kind of like restarting your computer by yanking the cord from the wall. You don't want to do that. Sometimes that button gets stuck and then it breaks your calculator. So do not reset your calculator by pressing this reset button. That's only for emergencies. Okay, how do you get your graph back to the standard 10 by 10 window? And so you don't have to reset your calculator every time you want your standard 10 by 10 window. We adjusted it quite a bit earlier. And so let's say I had it adjusted to negative 1000 and I didn't want it to look like that anymore. You just press zoom, then option 6. Automatically brings it back. So zoom 6. And so anytime you move to a new problem. And so, for example, this problem, I needed a huge window, but for this one, I did not. So anytime you move to a new problem, you want to do a zoom 6 just to get your standard viewing window. So zoom That's this top middle button here. And then option 6. And you do that anytime you move to a new problem. Okay, how do you change a decimal to a fraction? That's what I thought I was writing here. That one's the math. Enter. Okay, and so if you have a repeating decimal, this is very, very handy, but you have to make sure you type in enough 6s so that it knows it's repeating. For example, if I just did 1.667, math, enter, it's going to give me a weird fraction. And so you need to let the calculator know it's repeating by typing a whole bunch of 6s. And so let's say on the graph, I found my intersection to have a ton of 6s. I fill up the whole screen. I'm kind of dramatic. And so I would do that too. So math, enter, it's 5/3. Okay, and so here are some STAAR questions that involve regression. And so the table contains some points on the graph for an exponential function. Okay, pay attention to that because that tells me I'm going to use option 0 for expreg. Okay, and so based on the table, which function represents this relationship? So we're going to do stat calc 0 once we put these numbers into L1 and L2. So stat edit, and that's 0, 1, 2, 3. You need all the points for these. 0.0625. 0.2514. Stat calc, and we want option 0. You can scroll up or down, but we want expreg calculate. Here's our function. They give you the A value, they give you the B value. And so the A value is 0.0625, the B value is 4. That's option H. Okay, I forgot to answer number 11. It says, how do you store an equation into y equals? Okay, and so in y equals, I've got nothing in there. If I wanted it to put this equation in there for me so I don't have to type it, you're going to do stat calc 0 again. But before you get to calculate, stop at store regression equation and press alpha trace. And then choose where you want it. Okay, and so it says y1 right there in store regression equation and then press calculate. It doesn't look like it did anything, but then when you press y equals, they typed it all in there for you. And so alpha trace. And then 1 for y1. You can put in y2 by pressing 2. You can put it anywhere you want. Okay, alpha trace. Okay, the table shows some points on the graph of a linear function. So we just did exreg. For this one, we are going to do linreg. They're going to tell you what to do, so you got to pay attention. Okay, so you're going to put this in L1. You're going to put this in L2. And you're going to do stat calc 4 for linreg. Okay, and then the last one, a projectile launched into the air from the ground. The table shows the height at different times. Based on this table, which function can best be used to model the situation? So this time they didn't tell me it was quadratic, but all of my answer choices are quadratic. They have that too. And so that tells me I want to use quadreg. Okay, I hope that these copies turned out better. I'm going to zoom in so you can see the choices better. All of these are quadratic choices, and so that's how I know to use quadreg. Okay, so I'm going to do this example. I'm going to leave this one for you to do. Okay, so stat, edit. I've already got information in here. You can either do a reset or you can go up and highlight L2 and press clear, enter. Clear, enter. Okay, so for the X's, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. 1, 3, 5, 3, 2, 4, 6, 0, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 9, 4, 0. And you do want to include every single point unless they tell you otherwise. Sometimes they'll just say for the first 4 data entries. This does come up on your exit ticket, so pay attention to whether they want you to put all the points or just the first few. Okay, so stat calc, and this would be option 5 for quad reg. I'm going to write that down for you. So stat calc 5. Lin reg is stat calc 4, expreg is stat calc 0. So here we're doing stat calc 5. I'm going to go ahead and store it in Y1. Alpha trace Y1. Okay, and so it says ax squared plus bx plus c, and they're giving you the a, b, and c values. So it looks like a is about negative 4.9, and so we can cross off a and we can cross off d. We're between b and c. Okay, and both of them have 295 for b, and then one of them has 0.6 for the c value, the other has 2. And so 0.6 would be the closest because of this 0.57 that would round up to 0.6. So we want option B, not option C. They were kind of tricky on that one. Okay, so those are the most important features of the calculator, and now you have it all written down on one sheet of paper.